¿Hola? ¿Sí? ¿No? Vale. Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Quisiera presentar un poco el evento. Este es un evento que se sucede dentro del marco del Máster en Diseño y Dirección de Proyectos para Internet, de aquí de la casa. Es un evento que nosotros le llamamos el Laboratorio UX Avant, el laboratorio de nuestro máster. Y es un espacio un poco para la muestra, la reflexión, el desarrollo del diseño de interfaz y de experiencia de usuario. Este que vivimos ahora es un momento en que estos términos están en boca de todo el mundo, ¿no? Y un poco es necesario crear un espacio que fomente un diálogo y permita la exhibición de las prácticas profesionales, que nos permita explorar prácticas más especulativas y transmitir conocimiento entre profesionales, investigadores y estudiantes. Y estos son precisamente los objetivos del UX Avant. Este también es un evento que nos proporciona una oportunidad para mostrar la relevancia del diseño de experiencia en distintos sectores profesionales y también una oportunidad para establecer un punto de encuentro que ponga en contacto a nuestros estudiantes con las empresas de mayor influencia en el ámbito del diseño de producto digital. Este evento también es un espacio desde el cual se generan oportunidades para abrir la mirada, hacer crítica de los escenarios profesionales previstos y buscar nuevas oportunidades para el crecimiento de la disciplina. El UX Avant se formaliza en dos tipos de actividades. Tenemos por un lado un Design Sprint, un workshop que hacemos cerrado a nuestros estudiantes, donde pueden explorar estas nuevas oportunidades sectoriales. Y por el otro lado lo que hacemos es un showcase, que es esta jornada profesional que abrimos al público especializado en el que todos podamos aprender de otras experiencias de éxito. Como ya sabéis, esta es la segunda edición de este laboratorio y en esta ocasión el eje temático es la interfaz de producto para la creación musical. Este es un sector con un carácter experimental e innovador con una gran capacidad de transferencia a otros sectores. Vemos allí una oportunidad para observar hacia dónde podemos ir. Informaros que la curaduría de esta edición ha sido encargada a Pablo Sánchez, que es un diseñador de producto en Ableton, y a continuación nos explicará el detalle el programa que tenemos previsto para esta tarde. Y ya para terminar, quiero agradecer a Ableton su valiosa contribución para hacer posible este evento y a Elisaba por acogernos.
I will do this short introduction in English. Rosa and I want to thank the speakers for being here, for coming from different places in Europe, and the local speakers as well, even though the trip wasn't that long. We really want to thank you all. Not much to add to that. Only that we were expecting. We had lots of like around 60 people are supposed to be here now, but they are not here. They will be coming, so we will leave the door open before the auditorium gets full to avoid the noise the doors make. So leave the door open for a while.
Bueno, yo voy a hacer una presentación muy corta. Este ciclo de conferencias tiene como intención dar voz a diferentes actores dentro del diseño de interfaces, dentro de la creación de diseño de interfaces musicales, porque básicamente creo que muchas veces nos centramos en el rol del diseñador, pero dentro de estos circuitos hay muchas otras voces, como pueden ser programadores, como pueden ser artistas que tienen prácticas do it yourself, gente del ámbito académico que no son estrictamente diseñadores. Entonces, en este ciclo de conferencias lo que se intenta es dar voz a todas estas fases, a todos estos agentes. Entonces, el formato alternará charlas presentando productos y procesos con paneles de discusión, normalmente con formas de ver el diseño un poco contrapuestas y cómo esa unión genera cosas diferentes o singulares. Y cada participante es escogido un poco por lo singular de su propuesta en contraposición con los demás. Entonces, para ver un poco la agenda, hoy tenemos a Teenage Engineering, que es una empresa innovadora y emergente. Tenemos a David Mollerstedt para hablarnos de los retos del diseño técnico versus el diseño visual. Después tenemos a Ableton, que es una empresa consolidada y referente en el sector, donde hablaremos con ellos de Live, que es su software insignia. Entonces tenemos la oportunidad de hablar con Thorsten Slama, que es el diseñador o un pintor que se encargó de diseñar la primera interfaz de Live, y tenemos a Ed Makobas, que es el Head of Design, y con ellos dos podremos hablar de los inicios de Live, que es una cosa que pocas veces se ha habido, que creo que merece la pena escuchar, versus los procesos de diseño que se tienen ahora en Ableton, donde son mucho más complejos porque hay muchas más personas trabajando y muchos más diseñadores. Luego tenemos a Reactable Systems, que es un proyecto de investigación en constante evolución. Tenemos a Sergi Jordà, que es creador del instrumento, y nos presentará nuevos conceptos musicales que se desarrollan actualmente en la empresa Reactable Systems, y espero que con ello podamos ver también cómo el ámbito académico también propone nuevos paradigmas para lo que es el circuito de diseño de interfaces creativas musicales. Luego, después de eso, tenemos una pequeña pausa, o creo que un poco antes, y presentaremos los resultados del workshop que hemos tenido con los alumnos del ISABA, y el workshop tenía como intención explorar el loop como la unidad ineludible de la música electrónica y a partir de ahí pues generar una interfaz o una herramienta que tenga el loop como principal protagonista. Y por último contaremos con una conversación entre Cabo San Roque y Conductor que moderará Antonia, que es Antonia Fulguera, que es de contenido y comunicación en Sonar Más D. Entonces, por un lado tenemos a Cabo San Roque, que sería como un laboratorio sonoro que aprovecha lo cotidiano y la práctica do it yourself para construir máquinas que generan sonido que ellos mismos luego las interpretan o las utilizan en sus diferentes shows, ya sean lives, visuales o cualquier tipo de artes escénicas que manejan. Tenemos a Roger, que es el 50% de la banda, y por otro lado tenemos a Conductor, que es una startup barcelonesa focalizada en experiencias interactivas para entornos táctiles, que tenemos al Birmingham. Entonces veremos cómo estos dos agentes, que prácticamente normalmente son como antagónicos, parecen, diseño de productos más artesanos verdes digitales, como cuando los unes pues crean unos nuevos escenarios creativos interesantes. Entonces ahora yo creo que cambiará el inglés para dar paso a la siguiente ponente o al primer ponente. So now I will change. I just did this first introduction, and now please welcome Dave Morstead from Teenage Engineering.
Thank you. Hello. I'm going to do this in English because my Spanish is not so good and my Catalan is even worse. So my name is David. I'm one of the 4 founding members of Teenage Engineering. How many people here have heard about Teenage Engineering? Some? Yeah? Good. I'm gonna talk about how we deal with design, and also thanks a lot for inviting me here. Real fun to be here. And show some of the products we've done, other projects, and talk a little bit about where we came from and how I ended up here on this stage. This is our new office for Teenage Engineering. We're now 45 people, it says there, so that's probably true. It started like this 9 years ago. We were 5 people, and we had a dream to build a portable synthesizer, the OP1, and this was our first product. It looks like this, and we basically did all ourselves, hardware, software. We did a website, we started selling it, we figured out how to do production in Asia, and we didn't really know what to expect, and we're very, very happy with the response we got. It still sells more than ever, actually, and it's been a lot of people using it. I really like this quote from Justin. It's really, I think this captures a lot of what we try to do, because we're a great fan of his music, and he seems to like our stuff a lot. So we have this kind of mutual fan relationship, which is really nice. Where we kind of feel that we do something and then he does something even better with it. And when you get that kind of thing going, I think that's really what makes it fun to do the things. I also just want to show this in relation to the tragic events that happened. As a fellow Swede, we ended up here, which we didn't expect when we started out, among some other nice products. So after the OP1, we decided to do something else. because we like synthesizers, but we want to have like a broader range of products. So we did the OD11, and that is a speaker. It's a wireless speaker, and since we're Stockholm-based, we're neighbors with Spotify, so it was easy to talk to them. And with the OP1, the idea was kind of to change how you create music, basically just by taking the good ideas from the past and putting them together in a new form factor. With this, we wanted to change how you listen to music, because we felt suddenly there was all of these new streaming services and online music, and everybody was listening through these kind of crappy laptop speakers. So we wanted to bring back good listening sound. We were quite confident on electronics and the computer-related stuff. We didn't really know about acoustics. So this is built on a 70s model that was popular in Sweden. And we got in contact with the Stig Karlsson Foundation, and they helped out with the acoustics. And that was really helpful. It's super tricky to like figure out how a bass port works and airflow and stuff like that. The digital stuff we can handle. So we did that together with them, and it turned out really well. We do wireless stereo, the thing that Apple just managed to pull together with their speakers. But we felt also that the product was a little bit distant, because it was sitting there like an object in the corner. So we did one more thing in this project, the OR1. It's modeled after a Swedish snusdosa. It's our tobacco product. It's actually exactly the shape of that, if you know what that is. It's a controller. It does play, pause, volume. But we felt that the tactile part of listening to music was very important. One of the key features on all our synths is the tactility. It's a physical object you can touch. And with this, you can suddenly touch the music. And that felt really important and interesting to us. Technically, this is a BLE remote, so we added MIDI to it, so we're exploring other ways to use it for musical purposes as well. We also did some other stuff early on that never really materialized. This is a electric bike. We did that before the OP1. That was probably way too early. There wasn't like any real electric bikes around. I still think it's a nice project. Now maybe we can do it, but now others are doing it. I think maybe we shouldn't be doing electric bikes. Others do it, but it was fun. And I think as a company, we want to explore these kind of things. Another thing we explored was the studio system. Most of what we do has an audio angle to them. And this is light for studios, because when you dim them, they're silent. Most other lights make a buzzing sound when you dim them. And plus, I think they look real nice. We have a few at the office. It's not a commercially viable product, unfortunately, but I think it's a nice project anyway. We also like fashion or clothing. So this is Jesper to the left, our creative leader, and to the right it's Ann-Sophie. She has her own fashion brand and also works for H&M and Cheap Monday. They're all friends. So we asked her to do some workwear for us. It's actually what they're wearing here in this image. And she said, yeah, sure, we can do that. But then maybe you should do something for us. And previously our products has been like 800 euros or dollars or something like that. So we had kind of this in mind, that you go in and buy a pair of jeans and you buy a synthesizer. But then this is probably more realistic. they wanted this to retail for $49. I think it ended up $59. But it was very a good exercise for us to do something in that price range. And the reason our previous product was expensive wasn't that we want to be elitistic or anything like that. It was just we put so much into them. And here we got a chance to try to do something that was very, very affordable. And this ended up being a range of 9 products right now. And in terms of numbers, this is, of course, our biggest seller. They basically do one thing each. It's like a band. You can pick the drummer and the bass player and maybe one more drummer if you like, or something else. We also done a number of collaboration. Now this next slide might be tricky if you work with design. So it's all the logos of some of the companies. It doesn't look that good together. This is the first project we did under the teenage engineering name. It's a singing choir. To get some sense of size, this one is like maybe 2 meters plus. And these are small. And they all sing one part of a dynamically composed choir song. So it's both spatial and real time. And it sounds really, really nice because they get a flavor because of the different sizes. This was displayed at the Swedish pavilion in the World Expo in Shanghai. And it's for the vodka brand, Absolut, that now is owned by Pernod Ricard. So I think it's still in Stockholm or France. We did a camera for IKEA, the world's cheapest camera. It's just a PCB and cardboard. We done these for III, a Danish brand. And this is typically we're doing industrial design, and the inside is done by the company we work with. This is for the Berlin-based Impossible Projects that now I think bought the Polaroid brand. This is a hotel in Stockholm. They wanted a flip-dot display, and this was a case where we like to explore that technology and got a chance to do that through this. So. We have one at the office as well. This is Fredrik, one of the first day when we moved. Last year we worked with China for the first time. We worked with a company called Raven. They were bought by Baidu. Baidu is usually referred to as China's Google. And this is a smart speaker. It runs Duer OS, which is a Chinese AI assistant system. And we did the industrial design for this and helped out with the production setup. It features a removable dot matrix display, so you can remove that, and that's a standalone functional unit. So you can talk to either that or the base station. And when we did this, we also had some other ideas floating around. And this is in production. You can buy it in mainland China if you like. It doesn't really work outside China because of different things. We also did this, R. The other one is called H. This is R. This is a 6-axis robot. It has the same display. What's interesting with this is that since it can move, it becomes it has the possibility to express emotions. You can have it fold down, you can raise up, it can look at you. And we feel that this shape is very interesting because it's not at all looking like any kind of animal and human, but it's still very easy to get emotion into it. This is only in prototype stage right now. It would be really funny to make this into mass production and see what really can be done with this kind of product. We're doing right now a collection for IKEA called frekvens. That means frequency in Swedish. It's due to be out next year sometime, next summer, I think. Other things we're doing now is the OPZ. That's our next upcoming synthesizer. It looks like this. One of the things that's interesting with this is that it doesn't have a screen, because we believe that most people already have a screen. So it connects to your cell phone and use that for display. That also means that you can use it to do visuals. So as much as sequencing audio, you can sequence visuals. I haven't really seen that being done before, at least not in a standalone unit. And it feels like there's something magical happened when the visual and the audio is so tightly synced, because normally that's running in two different systems and there's a little bit of different things going on. Now you can actually do that on the same sequence data. So it's going to be very interesting to see what people do with this. It's going to be released this summer, August 1st, I believe, in New York, together with MoMA and online. So that's a few of the things we've done so far. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we think about things and when we design this. I'm a programmer by education. Since we were such a small company in the beginning, everybody was doing a bit of everything. Right now I work a lot with new collaborations and new ideas and do things like this. And when I talk about the kind of two sides of this, maybe if you had a cell phone in the 90s, you had one of these from Ericsson in Sweden. I think this is a very technical driven design. They have nice long antennas and maybe some little curve here, but otherwise it's pretty much you get what you need to get and not so much else. And I think they had like 40% of the worldwide cell phone market at the time. They don't anymore. They don't even exist doing cell phones. So that didn't really work out. There were some others coming. For example, the Finnish brand Nokia that also focused on the look of the phone. And they kind of ended up here on the other scale of the spectrum. And this didn't really work either. I don't think, I mean, yes, there are Nokia phones being made now, but it's not by Nokia. The brand is licensed out. And nowadays, this is the perception of a phone. I'm not sure if this is better. I think definitely there is room for something else. But yeah, that is one way to look at the different sides. For example, the inside. We like to make the inside look good as well, so we add kind of stuff internally. I don't know if anybody ever sees it, but if someone sees it, it's good. There is actually under one of the CPUs a phone number to one of our employees. But then, of course, we also work with the outside. And when we did the OP1, there was a lot of discussion about how to fit these encoders. And this design, which is the final design, we had to add 1 millimeter in height because it was impossible to do otherwise. But that was a tough decision that took a long, long time to do. But I think it's in that area where you kind of have the two worlds meet that the really good stuff happens. When you're not sloppy and just do something because it looks good or it's technically easy, you really find the intersection where it works together. I never worked with automotive, but I think what happens here is actually quite similar to what happens here. It's a lot of work that needs to be done, The only difference is here, there's probably a lot of rules that you need to follow and quite strict guidance on what you can do, and not so much room for improvisation. Here, it's basically make it fun, make it sound good. That's the rule. And that's, of course, a lot of freedom, which is nice. People like freedom, but it also makes it really tricky to make the right decisions. Here are some screens from the OP1. Can you see what you don't see? There is no yellow. Yellow is not allowed anywhere on that product. It's an arbitrary decision, but it helps. On the OPZ, there is plenty of yellow. For the OP1, we have this kind of raster-like vector or vectorized raster graphic. That is because the screen is an OLED, so only the pixels that are lit up uses power. So for battery reasons, it's really good to do that kind of stuff. It also looks nice. On the OPZ, we have a completely different screen. So then we're using solids. And also we're using Unity to render the graphics, so we can use 3D. I mean, we don't want to use full-on game-like 3D, but we can do 2D in 3D. So some of the decisions we make are based on what's actually happening inside the product. We also work a lot with that it should sound like it looks and look like it sounds. Usually there's different people doing graphics and audio. So for example, I've been doing a lot of the DSP stuff in the OP1, and Jesper perhaps is doing the graphics for that one. And now there's different other people doing similar things. And when you put it together and it works, it becomes really strong. But sometimes it doesn't work. So we have been doing many versions before we end up with this. So it can be completely different graphics. Sometimes even the graphics comes first, and then I have to make a sound that sounds like what it looks like. And I've heard comments when I've been doing something, and suddenly people are like, "Oh, it sounds so much better now. What did you change?" And I'm like, "Nothing. It's just got the right graphics now." It's also really interesting to see how people use, if you have this kind of lever here, people don't really care where it's at. But if that would be a number, which is usually in a prototype stage, it's like, oh, you need to hit 49.2 because that's what I want to have, or it needs to go to 100, or if it goes to 200, that's confusing. And to have people really listen and feel, it can help a lot with having the right interaction in terms of the visualization. For this one, we only have one pixel. We have a LED. So one of the interactions this has is a startup sound. And we want to make clear when we do a new upgrade to this. So we're always doing a contemporary upgrade sound based on our current products. So for example, if we would release an update now, it would probably be an OPZ sound playing. And as I said, this one was very much constrained by the price. And I think these kind of constraints are really, really helpful. Sometimes we make them up, sometimes they come by themselves. I think otherwise it would be just too difficult to make something that feels like a product and has some kind of unity. So given that, how do we know what we do is good? I really don't like this kind of stuff to ask people for opinions. I think you need to be pretty much done before you ask people. Otherwise, they would say, "Oh, you're missing this and that," and like, "Yeah, I know, we're not done yet." So it's not really helpful. On the other hand, you need feedback. I mean, it's naive to think you know everything yourself. So we need to leave some room for changes. So, for example, the dot is a key combo that's actually never got used. It was kind of left as that might be handy if we need to add something. And I don't actually think it ever will be used. So we tend to like try to do our product almost done, then get it out to people, and then hopefully be able to squeeze in the changes. And another thing that's interesting to think about is to think about the product as kind of an icon. So if you can pixelate it or make it into something that's easy to recognize in any shape, that's probably a good sign from a visual perspective. It's also, we have some quite dedicated fans. So when doing visual stuff, you can't really change your mind once it's out. It is what it is. But this is probably also the biggest appreciation you can get from someone. They dedicate your skin to you. So our process is probably quite intuitive. As I said, we started with putting some stuff up on a website and to see what happened. And we used a little bit of internet we're just at 99.9 thousand followers right now. We haven't really tried that hard to get, we just posted nice pictures. But then we started selling stores because we needed that. And the one thing I think we do well is prototyping. We prototype a lot, and not only like physical prototype like this, just test things out all the time. And since we have ourselves very much as guides to what we do and what is good, it's very easy to test. You don't need to ask anyone. You can just try it on yourself and your colleagues. And we do that lots and lots and lots. So if there's anything I want to say that it's good to do, is to try things out over and over again. And since we're mostly doing synthesizers and we're mostly sitting in an office doing that, we probably do a pretty decent job of testing them out for a studio environment. But what about live? So we started a band. So we play with our prototypes live in front of a live audience to see how that works. So we can kind of get the live experience before we release it, and somebody who needs to make a living touring finds out how it is. Plus it's really fun to play. So we've been doing this for quite some time now. I've played at different situations. If I should try to say what helped us do what we've done, I think it's a good thing living in Stockholm, Sweden, having long, dark, cold winters. You can kind of only work or drink or both. It's good for concentration. Here it feels, I heard that the beach is just down the street and it's warm and it seems to be a lot of distraction. We have that in summer only. So we have several good months of work each year. Then I think that the climate in Sweden is pretty good. We have well-educated people that didn't have to pay to get educated. We have some parts of the mixed economy still around. So I think that's helpful. Yeah, then try stuff over and over and over and over. Now, I mean, this depends on what you do, but I think it's important to realize that what we are doing is tools. even if the tool in itself can be a piece of art, we're doing the stuff that somebody else should be doing this with. But I think it's really important how you build the tool, because depending on how you build it, people will get different results. So we think a lot about the workflow and how you interact with what we do. And I think that has a big impact on this process when it actually becomes music. And I think here is when the magic kind of happens. I mean, I'm so impressed with what people do with the stuff we created. I could never have imagined the ways our things are being used. And that's really, really fun to see. I mean, that makes it definitely worthwhile doing it. So, yeah, thanks. That was the presentation. If there's questions, if we have time for that, I think that's... Yes. Yes. We have a 3D printer, a laser cutter for physical prototypes. We use that a lot. And for audio, we prototype with combining different other things. Is that what you meant? Yeah. I mean, we basically put stuff together out of other things, plus have a machine park to be able to build stuff. OP1, it took super long because we were also doing other stuff in parallel. I'm afraid to say, but it took a long, long time, several years, which in part was good because the product matured during that. I would want to be able to do things much faster, and now we can do it faster as well. I think probably 1 to 2 years is the maximum project should go. I think 1 year is probably a nice cycle, if possible. But I mean, then if you have production set up, that's always going to take time as well. So it depends on how you measure. Yeah, I'm a programmer. So I was kind of handling the software side. Then there was David Eriksson, he was on the hardware side. Then it was Jens Rudberg, he was kind of in the middle between hardware and software. Jesper Kautoft did all the visual, the ID, the graphical things. Then we did most of the other things together. I worked at a synth company called Electron before. The others worked in advertising and online, and we had quite a bit of knowledge, so we didn't start from scratch. But in terms of roles, it was actually 3 engineers and 1 designer. Yes, and a lot of the people still, most of the people have relations to music. And or games, actually. There's a lot of connections to the gaming scene in Stockholm. I think that's also good for this kind of product, to bring the playfulness. Gaming, computer games.
So when you have a project, you decide, well, your group decide which project you want to do, or is a company the one who goes to the company and says, I need that to do it? Or how do you work?
Most of the projects originates internally, and we just prototype a lot and try them out, and what if like everybody seems to like it, it's probably a good idea, and then we decide to go ahead. Some of the external projects is somebody coming to us asking for us to do a collaboration. We usually say no, but sometimes we say yes.
And what drives you to say yes or no?
I think when there is an interesting angle, it can be the concept, it can be a technology we want to explore, it can be a company we like that we wanted to work with. There needs to be some kind of connection that feels relevant.
Anybody?
Please take it. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So if you were willing to extemporize on the relationship between your sex or gender and what you're doing, would you do that, and could you do that?
We have huge problems with that. I mean, as you saw in the first picture, we were 5 male persons. It's super tricky to get good female engineers. I've been trying that for a long time.
Yes, that is one question, but your own relationship between, what do you feel? What makes it such a male pursuit?
How do you mean? I think it's I think if I can answer, and then you can ask again. I think we would want to be a 50-50 company. Then I think the outcome of the company would feel quite gender neutral. At least that's our thought process, because from what we've seen so far, our customers are quite like us. So that makes it quite easy to fix. We just need to be a bit more diverse internally. Was that the question?
Well, as I said, what I find interesting is whether you, when you look at yourself and your modes of thinking and your ambition, do you feel that has something to do with your sex?
No. I think music is gender agnostic, both listening to music and creating music.
How about the customers, the people? I mean, do you know about the kind of gender balance or bias?
Yeah, and it's quite similar to what we are internally. So it's
Yes.
predominantly male.
Do we have more questions, or we can go through the next step? Hola. Hello. Okay, hello. So now we're going to talk. I'm Pablo Sanchez. I'm going to be moderating this panel or the discussion. So we're going to talk about Live, Ableton Live, and we have here Thorsten Slama, that was in charge of the first design for the Live UI, so Live 1 in 2001. And then we had Ed Macobas, that is head of design for Ableton. So the dynamics of the talk would be, basically I will be handing some visual support, and we will have some conversation around the images. So let's start. My first question is for you, Ed. What is Live exactly?
What is Live? So Live is software for making music. It's, I guess, whenever other people that are better at doing it than me talk about it, they talk about the main difference between it and software that came before it was that it has a concept of putting music together in a non-linear way. Like most software up until that was like a computer pretending to be a tape machine that had a timeline, and I think although it was probably around in other software, Live made this idea of composing in a non-linear way with what we call clips to be a thing. Yes, that's my rough description of it.
Cool.
But it's many things to many people.
So now if we think of the first Live UI that you designed, Thorsten, and with this kind of definition that we heard from it, do you think that do you recognize this Live that Ed describes as the same one that you designed?
Well, I definitely see that it has developed more in the direction which Ed just described, and I think it had the weakness in the beginning that it was actually more linear than its potential in praxis, and just developed, which then made it actually less linear. Also during the time when I developed the interface, but I think the structure was very clearly defined from the beginning, even when the visuals weren't very well defined. Oh yes. So the structure could also be described very, very simply as horizontal and vertical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that made a big difference, and that got further kind of implemented, the virtue of this kind of different visual representation of music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite important, I
So
guess.
in the moment that you designed it, can you tell us about like the process? In the process, I mean in terms of what was the team setup, what were the roles? I guess like in 2000, it was a really different team than the one that we have today with Ableton.
There was a team, and that consisted mostly of programmers, and there was
Mhm.
another team, and that was the kind of core marketing team. And the team for the visual design wasn't really so much of a team, because it was basically me interacting very, very much with the founder, Gerhard Bieles,
Mm-hmm.
who was very much kind of, who had a very clear structural representation of what he wanted, and was thankfully very open when it came to the visual representation, to the actually the design of elements, the kind of what a button or a knob or things like that would look like. He was not really, he didn't really have a fixed idea at all in the beginning, and was very kind of willing to accept anything which looked reasonable to him. And then you asked me before that, because it seems to be common knowledge now. He was very kind of one day he came to me and said he saw something in a documentation about cockpits for planes, and he really liked the idea that the pilot, the responsible person, needs to get information really fast. So it was very much about information design, and I think that actually played a significant role for what I was doing then, because then I really concentrated on the idea that any value must be somehow clearly represented. And of course it's a challenge when there are very many parameters which have to be shown and present on the screen.
So in a way, like I guess it was like more like a dialogue between you and Gerhard?
Yes, that's actually what I was meaning to say.
Okay, and then you have like this airplane cockpit, like the visual...
No, actually it was just, I never really looked at airplane, or not, maybe once or something.
Okay.
It was more the idea. It was, he kind of illustrated what he thought was really, really important. And I agreed, so then I followed that advice. And well, maybe I must say, if I remember it correctly, then Robert Henke was also involved, and of course the CTO, what's TEO, Bernd Roggendorf. So, but it was mainly Gerhard.
So I guess this is a totally different setup that we can think of in current Ableton. I think if we think of Ableton as a company, but if we focus on live, can you explain us a bit about what is the team setup for this software nowadays?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's I don't think it's changed so much in that a lot of what we do is still a dialogue between someone who sees themselves in some sort of design role and someone who sees themselves in a role as having a vision of a product, and there's some engineers along for the ride who also make contributions. I guess the biggest change is that it's gotten bigger and it's no longer just one group of people, so the complexity comes from live is now, I think, 4 or 5 teams of people, each trying to work independently on different parts of the software. And then there's a group of people focused on the product vision, there's multiple people in these design roles, and there are many more engineers. And so this first part of the setup that I describe I don't think has changed too much from what Torsten described, but now there's a whole bunch of other relationships, so you're not the only designer working on it, you need to talk to the other designers that are working on other different parts and come up with a strategy for how your independent work makes sense. The engineers need to do the same thing, the people thinking about the product vision need to do the same thing. And then, even though we're just talking about live, the people in live are no longer able to just think about live because we have other products as well. So things we change in live affect push, for example.
So in this, in this immediacy that Torsten was talking about, just like talking with somebody else versus this kind of now new relation that you would in Ableton, what do you think that are like the benefits or the constraints that you work out with? In the sense, is there something that you can take of it that you didn't have before or that you don't have, or do you lose some immediacy but you win in some other places?
I don't think the difference between the two situations arose out of a conscious choice to change how we work. It more comes from dealing with the realities of growth.
Okay.
Basically, after 15 years of building something, it is more complex than it was at the beginning. So the amount of people required to make a change is larger than it was at the beginning. And so there's a bunch of things that you need to do when you have a larger group of people that you didn't need to do when you had a smaller group of people. I think what Torsten describes is, I think, what everyone would like to still be doing, but we just can't. It's, if we did that now, then I think it would get messy. Or it would really depend very, very much on whatever sort of ideas people happen to have. You might get lucky and it would all end up in a good place, or you might get very unlucky and it ends up in a very bad place. I think it's, it comes naturally from the complexity that comes from scale.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So now if we look a bit more on the UI and we think about like the visual design or the design choices that we made, Torsten, we're looking now at one that is a refined version, so it's Live 10. But if we think of the moment that you started design, we talked about airplane cockpit as a concept. That was the only philosophy that was behind, or what other kind of philosophy drove it?
I wouldn't even say that it was a philosophy. It was an illustration of a philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a kind of idea which helped concentrate on what was the main problem to be solved, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could say, I think what's kind of clever and interesting about the whole design, it's like the first version of Windows, because it doesn't have overlapping windows,
Mm-hmm.
but that creates also a problem, of course, because you have to show each and every parameter every time, all the time on the screen. Well, not really, but it's definitely easier to just kind of open a window and then make it vanish again, or it seems easier, but it also grows confusing. And here you have a kind of gestalt,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's very important. That is maybe much more part of the philosophy than a word like cockpit. Because
Mm-hmm.
cockpit, of course, would be misleading. A cockpit, because you have controls, and the cockpit mainly shows, you know, what it shows something. It is kind of one-directional, and the ultimate aim of your interaction with the computer is, of course, something, and that is really a difference. What I said, you know, when you have this kind of dial which shows its own value, it's a hybrid between something which you supposedly, not really, but turn
Mm-hmm.
and handle, and so it actually serves both sides, input and output.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, that was very often, is still because you have a keyboard.
I guess you mentioned like this idea of the pop-ups or the windows, the pop-up windows, that it's something that Ableton Live tries to avoid.
Yes.
So I guess like this was one choice, and the other one that I feel that still remains like pretty untouched is this idea of flat design, like a couple of choices that were made that still remain in this sense. How is that you end up like doing this kind of flat design? Was a choice that you made because...
And I think that has something to do with that I had a very short stint before for the kind of, for the competition, Native Instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a product which was mainly just kind of done by the programmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the job of making it look more, and he actually said something, I found that really kind of repulsive. He said, you know, now we're going to have a more sexy interface.
Mm-hmm.
So he just wanted, or they wanted it to look more appealing. Basically, I would reckon, I would suppose, I would think to men. That's why this came from, I guess. So what I ended up with was really quite horrible, because I just kind of took the whole interface, which was already there, programmed, and added three-dimensional looking
Mm-hmm.
controllers. They looked like putty or something, or like some kind of plastics material lying on top of a flat surface. Really stupid and quite bad. But you know, I talked with Bernd, who was also working. He was later very involved in Ableton, and he said something like, which sounded really good. He said something like, "Torsten, you must think what you're doing now is totally free of the constraints of physical reality. So you can make something which does really crazy things, and there's no gravity and things like that, and you know, blobs and shapes and things like that." But that was kind of, you know, it didn't lead anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of predisposed when I got a second chance to go more in that direction, and yeah, it was perfectly fine with it. though that wasn't really what he didn't say, set off saying something like, we need a flat design. I just kind of felt an inclination to go there. And once I started, everything became quite easy, because it's very kind of limited, the choices you have, because actually to make something look three-dimensional helps very often. You know? It creates contrast and depth, or perceived depth, adds a lot of information. So you had to kind of, it's actually what you mentioned, when you have limitations, it helps.
Yep.
It's like taking the color yellow out, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, it looks like, I mean, now we talk about flat design, it seems like a pretty obvious choice, because everybody, it's a big trend. But back in the days, I guess it was a really thought choice that didn't have to do with all the other companies that were building softwares with this kind of skeuomorphic design. I guess like nowadays at Ableton, what is like, is there like a design philosophy behind the refinements that you work with Ableton Live among the design team?
Yeah, I mean, when I started working on Live, that wasn't so long ago, that was only, I think, 4 years ago. One of the first things I did with some of the other people was to try and work out what it is that makes Live live, because I guess the goal of our change was not to make it into a different thing, but make it into a better version of itself. And we needed to work out what it was that made it itself. And by that point, the aesthetic that Live had was very much established, and you could often these sort of this very minimalist aesthetic versus something that's much more maximalist or references reality a bit more. One's seen as like being very functional and rational, and the other one is like trying to appeal to people's emotions. But by this point, this aesthetic was something that people very much had an emotional connection to in Live. To the point where they rationalized that it has functional consequences. Like people will say things like, I like Live because it has this minimal UI, which means it's not using very much processing power, which leaves more for my music, which is completely untrue. It has no basis in fact. But once people develop an understanding of these things, I learned the hard way, that you can try and convince them of the truth, which can be very painful, or you can, if you can just try and roll with it. And so I guess we realized that this minimalism, this visual reduction was something of Live, and that there are a few other things as well. Like I guess there's very much an idea of it being systematic and it being uniform, I guess. I don't like to reference native always, but propeller heads are another good example. They make a piece of software, but there are components in it that are devised as having their own world visually. Each one of them could be its own separate product. It's like they started from scratch and they all sit within the container of reason, whilst Live very much goes in the other direction. It says, no, we have a box of Lego blocks, and each time you make a thing, you can choose the Lego blocks you use and how you arrange them, but it's all composed of the same substance. And so there's a few things like this that we came up with, and it also comes up with when we sat down to work on Push, we had to work out what things about Push would be different to Live and what things would be similar. And some of it was just, what things would we do if we didn't have the same rules that we've had for 12 years with Live?
Yeah, I guess you talked about this emotional attachment that some users have with the current Live. So how do you deal with, how do you change things when they seem to work? Or how do you decide what to change when it seems to work?
How do you do it carefully? Like I said, you get excited by change as a designer. You get this idea that you can make things better. And then you have to make things worse many, many times before you realize that new things are quite easy because there wasn't a previous version that it would be worse than. So I've learnt with something with live, and I mean, it feels like a burden as a designer, but it's, without getting too wanky about it, like it's a really great thing that there are so many people that have spent so much time learning this thing that you actually have a lot to disrupt. If no one cared, that would be worse. Like if you changed it completely and people were like, yeah, okay, whatever, then you'd feel like no one cared about what you were doing. So I think when we change these things, we have to be careful, and we haven't come up with a good system because it seems to be some part relying a lot on different people's intuition that know a lot about the software and use the software a lot, but also then just putting it in front of people and seeing whether it works or doesn't, and then doing it again, and then putting it in front of more people and seeing who screams the loudest, and then working out whether the people screaming represent a large group of people or a small group of people, and okay, if we're showing it to 1,000 people and there's this many people screaming, if we give it to 100,000 people, how many people will be screaming then? And it's just managing the screen, I guess.
So now you're talking about hundreds of people looking at your features. How do you deal with this feedback with users? What channels do you use, or how do you talk with users?
We have some software tools that are kind of like, I guess, a forum where people can go, and we'll give them an early version of the software, and they will talk about what makes them happy or what makes them sad, or what makes them think we should be fired, or what makes them really angry. It happens. You do this, you have to develop like a way of rationalizing that they don't know who I am and they're not really thinking about what they're saying. We've just made them a bit angry because we've changed something that they like. They don't actually want me to be fired, because they do say that sometimes. But there aren't really good tools for this, because it has the same problems that social media and forums have on the internet, that there's a couple of occasions where me or designers have actually forced ourselves to sit down and count the different comments and put them in a spreadsheet to work out, because it's really easy to have a long thread and it sounds like a huge amount of people have a single opinion, and you realize it's just 2 or 3 people talking to each other back and forth and basically exaggerating on top of each other, and then every now and then someone says, you know, if they really like it, that can be happening, and then someone will be like, no, I don't really like it, and they're like, no, it's really good because, and you can, so it's, the tools aren't very good. The internet and the web in general make it easier to get feedback from a much larger group of people, which is useful, but compared to sitting in a room with a person or people, it's much easier to misjudge what the group is actually saying. And also there's a problem that you have, I think, that's not specific to music software, but any product that people use, you get it with internet reviews of restaurants and hotels as well. Someone has a shitty experience and they need to go and make someone hear about their shitty experience. Someone has a good experience, they enjoy themselves, they get on with their lives, and they don't say anything. So you sit there, you gave it to 100 people, 5 people said it was crap, 2 people said thank you. What do the other 93 people think? Like, are they not talking to me because they don't care? Are they not talking because they're happy and they've got better things to do and they're just using it to make music?
Yeah.
It's this is really hard. We've found no good way around this.
So I guess for you, Torsten, was a totally different thing. I don't know if you talked at all with users, or you had like some kind of, how did you deal with this kind of feedback?
No, I didn't really engage in this kind of work. But it was being done already. I mean, it started quite early that there was a focus on creating a community and having people giving their input and become engaged and empowered users. And I think they even did things like inviting top users to have a look at the office or something. So that also already happened around my time, but I had this kind of, actually it was very nice for me, you know, because for some reason nobody kind of demanded of me to take part in these things. So I guess something which you didn't address is that my background was a little bit different, and one could say not really that professional. But I was allowed to work maybe more like an artist works, very kind of self-referential and not really kind of concerned with the outside world to such a degree.
Yeah.
That was the job others did.
Yeah, I was gonna come just to this that you're talking about now, because I guess like you're a fine artist, so I'm fascinated about what do you think about, or what do you think that are like the common grounds between painting and UI design, for example. This is, we just put like, I think this is one of your paintings, right? Do you see any link between the two disciplines, or how do you think that they communicate?
There's one very kind of, if you look at the shape, some people actually didn't like it because this painting, because it looks a bit like a widescreen display. And some people prefer, I'm among them, the old-fashioned, narrower 4:3 displays. So it is actually a screen, and it's two-dimensional. And if you work especially as a painter, or if you do drawings, you're working two-dimensionally. And I think that plays a big role, and that is a very kind of important connection between the two. My inclination was actually to think two-dimensionally, not really in depth. And but the other thing is, I think, if you go through the history of software and hardware development, I was at the time very much into the origins, the early uses of computers in education, for example, or in music, and the origins of man-machine interaction, and there were many kind of very interesting characters involved. And I think very important for me was somebody who was called Alan Kay, who is credited with inventing or kind of first visualizing the laptop, or the kind of window. And he was doing this programming language Smalltalk and having this machine at Xerox, and that was very influential for Apple later on, or for the Lisa, which was then turned into the Macintosh, maybe one could say, or maybe not. Anyway, so he was very important. He's still very kind of important in the way that he's still invited to talk about software design very often, and hardware design, and interface design. And he would say, for example, that he always thought it's totally very, very important to have in a development team a fine artist involved. So he had this kind of clear idea. There are people who are called artists, and they work differently. And nowadays you don't have these clear differences anymore, I think. You know? Because artists don't really necessarily work like artists, or kind of look like artists, and things like that. But I think the idea is that you have somebody who is allowed to kind of have a different pursuit, actually, and have a different ambition than you would have. You know, you described yourself as somebody who has to deal with administrative decisions very often. And you are totally limited very often in your freedom and your imagination. And I was, for a short phase, allowed to not being limited by that. And that was, of course, for me, and I think for the product, very fruitful.
That's really interesting. So I guess, like, I don't know, now we talk about this kind of, I don't know if the word is outsider, but people that are not really designers. I heard, like, for example, Nintendo used to try to hire designers that are not really game designers, but are designers. I don't know what is there is a philosophy, like something like this in Ableton? Like, if people need to know a lot about music, or?
This is a topic that's been, I wouldn't say like a big tension, but it's a tension that has existed pretty much since I've been at Ableton. Like how much we benefit from people being very much in the topic, and how much we benefit from people having distance from the domain. And the only conclusion I can be at this point is that both are of benefit, and it's about establishing the right balance, and it's kind of, it almost comes down to like the right combination of people. Like you can sort of see that two people will work very well together because one of them just intuitively sees these things and another one fills in the gaps that they missed because they're focused on something. But I guess I tend to, because I've made music, I still make music, but it's not at the same level as a lot of other people at Ableton. I'm more on the side of distance. I guess when it comes down to it, you're two groups of people that want each feel their perspective is valuable, and so don't want a description of the world that says they're not a valuable one. So if you say like, no, it's really important that people are all about music making, then the people that aren't all about music making are like.
You still have. What?
We still have Robert Henke involved, yes.
And he represents the music side, doesn't he?
Not alone, not alone, but he brings, I guess, very clear ideas of what things could be and how they should work that are informed by his ongoing practice as, I guess, as an artist, as a musician. So he, I guess, comes at it very much from that side, but having had so much experience with making software, he also has a clear understanding of the kind of things that are possible and can phrase it in our language. We then have people that sort of sit at different points in that spectrum. What we don't have is people that have zero interest in music. We've never managed to find someone that was so good at being a designer or an engineer that like they couldn't even, they weren't excited about music. We have people that maybe don't make music so much. We have people that maybe make music but not with something like live, like people that play the clarinet, which is also cool. But the thing that comes to it is, if you're honest, making the kind of products we make at times is a complete pain in the ass. Like you need something to motivate you to do all of the annoying things that actually will make it hopefully good at the end. Like if making good products was easy, there'd be a lot more good products out there. Life would be less interesting, but in the end, it's a lot of work and it can sometimes be really annoying. So you have to have something behind it that you like. So we end up with all these. You need someone that probably has some motivations beyond just the job.
Yep.
But then that's sort of motivation is one thing, but then levels of domain knowledge, I think there's benefits in all of it. Like maybe just one last example, one of the more recent designers we hired, Julka, doesn't make music. But one thing she does do is she does live visuals, and she does this with analog video synthesizers. So she has something that looks like a modular audio synthesizer, but instead it produces video. So she'll do visuals for DJs or artists performing with a bunch of boxes with cables and encoders, no computers anywhere. And I think her perspective on stuff is really interesting because she is familiar with the kind of complexity that is a similar level to ours, and there are a lot of concepts that are very similar to ours, but it's not the same as ours. So she has, I think there's cases where she can look at things and see them differently to everyone else, which is important.
Yep. Cool. I think we're running out of time, so I would like to ask you a couple of questions, just like to end. Thorsten, I don't know, I mean, I know that you designed this 2001 Live UI. I don't know if you had the chance during these years to work again with music.
The chance? No. But an inclination and interest, yes.
Yep.
I mean, I'm totally into music.
Yep.
And, but I'm really kind of limited because I'm like the average music lover, I think. You know, like I really love music, and I think it's so much. Really, it's like this joke. I could hear every word, but I didn't know what it meant, which in German actually is quite funny because it's not funny in English. I disagree. So, you know, I think that music is fascinating, and it requires a lot of intelligence, and I seem to not really have that intelligence. I just have I seem to have the intelligence of a listener. You know, like the intelligence of a consumer. You know, people who use, for example, the software and kind of form opinions, but somebody who kind of programs it knows that they are really having no clue. So, yeah, I never played, for example, when I was very young, I played in a band, for example. I would love to now, but I don't actually find other band members.
Okay, so, and for you, Ed, can you talk us about future of life?
How much trouble do I want to get in? Probably not a lot. So, I mean, Live's in an interesting point where it's become, I don't want to say ubiquitous, but it's very, very widely spread in a certain kind of music. And it's a kind of music that at the moment has become very popular in some places. And so it has a huge legacy. It has a lot of, it's quite widespread at the moment. So I think the future of Live is somehow about, that's a challenge. Like people reach a certain tipping point and maybe they lose their way. So I think for us it's really, it's walking this line between new people that come to Live and people that have been there the whole time or have been there a long time, and working out how to find the right balance of moving forward. So it will need to change and develop, but if it becomes something completely different, that probably doesn't make sense either. But I guess Live has it has a lot in common with software like what Adobe makes.
Mm-hmm.
And see them dealing with the challenge there, where they stuff like Photoshop and Illustrator ended up being used for things that they never meant for it to be used for, and it took Adobe a very long time to make something that was actually intended for that, and in the meantime other people came out with things like Sketch or Figma or whatever, and I guess we have competitors and there's changes in technology, so it's a real, I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I have a feeling it's navigating these tensions. Like, because if we try to make everything new, we'll burn things down with people inside it, and that will not work.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that's. But if we don't change, then there'll be other more interesting places to go.
Cool.
That's a tough one.
Yep. Cool. I don't know if we have time for questions now, or we need a break. So maybe we can. Couple of questions. Somebody wants to ask something? Yep, here if you don't mind.
You were talking about horizontal and vertical representation of music. Is that the logo, and did you make the logo?
The logo? What was the question about the logo?
You were talking about horizontal and vertical representation of music. That's the logo, and did you make the logo? I think that's a no.
Oh, that actually.
Yeah, wait a minute.
I don't remember. No, actually, I do remember. I think they kind of, before me, they hired some designer. And he kind of did that. And Ableton, in a very round type.
Yep.
Is it Hans?
So
is it
yeah, I found that actually.
Well, that's a newer one. I had, when we were doing the rebrand, I had some conversations with the founders, and you're never sure whether these things are actually the way people describe them, because it was 10 years ago, and sometimes I even noticed stuff 4 years ago. I was like, this is how it happened. That's not how it happened. But what I was told was that it was supposed to be a representation of notes on musical notation. So the horizontal part is the staff, and then kind of a simplified idea of music, but was supposed to also convey the idea of people dancing and movement. But people looked at it and they're like, it's like the software. And so it's weird that by the time we got round to designing the newer version and simplifying it, the agency made thought that we were working with already had it in their head that it represented the software and the dualities in the software, and a couple of times people were like, that's not actually what it is. And then we were like, what's the point? Does that really matter? It's like, it's 8 rectangles.
I thought that one was what it was.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things, it's a Rorschach. Like, people look at it and they see stuff, and if it makes them feel good, then I guess that's good. Yeah, I can't get a straight answer on what it actually is supposed to be, which maybe is also a good thing. Yeah.
You said about the horizontal and vertical thing. The plugins, it's all there, doesn't need a pop-up. But a question, you said like before, it's like a I open an external plugin, like with a window and that kind of thing, it's there like of the future to put something different. Better to use like a external plugin.
It is something that we think about. It is like a contradiction that sits there in the software, that there's 2 different ways of what a device should look like. Like we have our way, and then there's these compromises that you have to we wanted to support a third-party technology that thinks of things differently to how we think of it, and our way is a compromise, their way is a different compromise. Having both of them is another compromise. I think we would like it to work better. I'm not sure if that would mean us making things more like the way third parties do it. There's maybe other ways, but it is, I guess, all I could say is that we see there's room for improvement there as well, even though we're fairly convinced of the merits of kind of the fundamentals of our approach. What Torsten was talking about of having everything available on screen. When you're trying to move quickly, you want to minimize the amount of choices people make, and choosing exactly where something goes is a choice that generally you can avoid making.
Can I add something?
Yeah, certainly.
Because I've been thinking about that beforehand, actually. I would like to do something like in a Buñuel film. I would like to talk about a dream I had, which was, I was dreaming I was working for Ableton again, and I was talking to somebody, maybe you, but I didn't know you then, and I was talking about my ideas I had and something, and this other person was really strict and said something that was a really loud kind of sentence which stayed with me when I woke up. He said, you know, in the future, our software will render itself.
That might not have been me. I can imagine a few people who that might have been, but that wasn't me. Interesting.
Cool. Any other questions? So we should do a short break, I think.
Let him ask us a good question.
Yep. Okay.
You talked about the importance of persons are of the topic working in this kind of context. But then you said that anyone that actually are not interested into music. So can you make the difference between being interested, having knowledge about the topic? Because I might like listen to music, but actually be or have knowledge about it.
So the question is it enough to know about something even if you're not interested in it, or
it's actually
the other way around?
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the role, but generally in our experience, knowledge tends to follow interest. So,
but I might be able, I might like to listen to music, but
yeah, that I'd say that's probably not enough. There's a certain threshold that you need to reach where you need to bring some sort of knowledge to things. Like, I mean, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we have a lot of people that would like to work on our products because they're very interested in what we do, but they don't have a background or a set of skills that would bring a lot to a team. But like I said, normally knowledge follows interest, so if people are interested in something for long enough, they will find ways to learn more about it, or they'll lose interest.
Oh, I think we have to stop it here. Thanks a lot, Thorsten, and thanks, Ed,
Thank you,
for
Pablo.
being here.
Continuamos las jornadas y ahora doy paso a Sergi Jordà de Reactable System, que nos explicará un poco su trayectoria y lo que nos propone de nuevo. Vale, muchas gracias.
Should I continue in English or preferís en castellano? English? Yeah. English. Okay, I continue in English. Okay, so my name is Sergi Jordà. Where do I switch the screen? Yeah. I'm a researcher at the University Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona, where I lead one research group in the music technology group, which is a big research in music technology. And I'm also the founder of Reactable Systems, which is a company that was founded in 2009. So this is kind of the research side, and this is the company side, where we make music technology, hardware, and also software-based. On today, it was discussed where do people that work in these things comes from, and how important music is for all of us. My background is as a physicist, but at the same time, while I was studying physics, I was playing saxophone. That's a very early picture from '81 with me playing free jazz. I was playing tenor saxophone, and I was very bad because I didn't like to rehearse. And that's essential to understand why I became a computer musician. Because I understood at that time, when I started looking at computers, that when you are able to tell a computer what to do, which seems complicated at the beginning, once you learn how to do it, they do it. And that computers don't get bored doing boring things. So I thought, I mean, there's a whole part of making music that I love, but which is really kind of instant about the music, the moment of making it. However, I don't like to be making scales all the time. So when I understood all that, it was around '83, I decided I was going to become a computer music improviser. Then I became kind of more scientist and other things, and a CEO of a company, but that has been my motto since I was 20, being a computer music improviser. That's from '96, okay? So, my perspective here is really not as a designer. I could never consider myself a designer. If any case, I would consider myself probably an inventor. And that has to do with seeing the whole picture and dealing with the whole picture, or taking some parts. So for me, making music technology has always been about making instruments. And as instruments, I mean the whole thing. So, and it's kind of a holistic approach to something. I will not insist too much about what is a music instrument and what makes a good instrument being good or bad. That's something I was asked in a jury in 2011 about what would be for you the goal of how would you evaluate a good music instrument, a good new. Here I put two things. One is that it needs to, I mean, as a designer or as a worker, of a builder of music instruments that are made for the others, I guess the goal is that this brings something to the people that uses it. The other, from a more ecological perspective, is that in order to make something new, you need to make something that is at least very good at doing something. That is, I wouldn't say unique, but that really makes it great at this thing. It can be small, but it should be something, okay? I know in 30 minutes to tell this whole philosophy might be a bit complicated, but just that's to start. So I will start with the instrument that kind of made us more popular, which is the Reactable, and that's the 4 people that made it. I will show later what it is. It has, I show it because it has also been discussed about, should we be musicians, should we be designers, should we be programmers? Okay, these 4 people were computer scientists and engineers and musicians. And when I say and, the 4 of us were the 3 things. I'm sorry there were no designers, but, and I'm sure you can get it by the slides, no, the design of the slides. But we kind of had an idea about what we wanted to make. So at this time, it was kind of live computer music was really starting, and people were playing live with their laptops, and people didn't really like to see someone behind the laptop, because sometimes they thought, and many times with reason, not for the Ableton Live users, but for other users of other software, like iTunes users, that they were not doing anything, and that's completely true. Many people behind their laptops doesn't do anything. They just do iTunes. So we thought, okay, there's a chance, how can we make something for people to make really live music? And so these are some of the ideas also that came as musicians. And the first one, for example, especially for me as an improviser. As an improviser, and something that, I mean, I used to play saxophone, as I said, something that I still envy from people that play the guitar and the saxophone is that all their music is with the instrument. When they go to a jam, they don't need to think what loops and what templates and what files and what are they going to bring, because they have everything there. You get this idea? A guitar, well, maybe you choose the pedals, but it's like it has everything in there. So I thought, is it possible to have a computer that has that so that I can play tonight and I don't have to think what I'm going to play, because maybe I'm going to shift completely while I'm playing, or maybe I'm playing with someone that is going to do something completely different than what I thought. So that was an important thing. And the other, the right brain tool for computer music, that's an oversimplification, but I guess that you have heard that in the left brain we have all the analytical stuff, and in the right brain it's kind of where the art and the non-linear thinking goes. It's a simplification, but that's what I meant here. So I meant if you have a guitar, sometimes you start playing the guitar and you don't know what you're going to play, and you just pick it and oh, that's chord, this chord, and it's very hard to do that with a computer. It's very hard to start from scratch, and without thinking, analytical thinking, that's what I'm going to do, because you start browsing files, you start putting something, trying. So we wanted to make something that would allow to start making music as a guitar. Like, maybe, I don't know, what happens if I do that? The other thing was to make something very non-intimidating, but at the same time very powerful. Like, it can be, you can make just a stupid thing, but if you keep trying and you keep learning, you kind of get better. So now I will show 3 pictures of 3 inspirations. That's very powerful and very intimidating. David managed to make it less intimidating. We tried from a kind of different approach. The cockpit, we have talked today about the cockpit. That was, for me, a very important thing, and it has already been said. What does it mean? It means this plane, I've never tried that, but I guess that if you put a blanket on top of that, it flies perfectly. However, the pilot is scared, because the pilot likes to see what's going on, and if you don't see what's going on, you kind of really feel like completely lost. Making music with computers is something a bit related. You have many processes going on, and as Thorsten has said, it's important to have a kind of very global vision about everything. Like, if you could have, like here, a view of everything, that you don't need to go to the menu there, open the 3rd file, open the window. So you are playing live. It's like piloting. You need to be fast. You need to see everything. So this was important in the design. And the 3rd point, maybe that's not very obvious, but do you know what's that, I guess? Do you know what's the main difference between that and a calculator or a computer? Well, since we don't, that's not a class, I will give the answer. Here, you don't have a keyboard and a display. Here, the input is the output. You operate with the data. So there's no, I enter information from here and the information goes back from there. It's really operating with data, so that's a screen and a keyboard at the same time. You operate and it gives the results. So that was the concepts that came to design something like that. I will later show a video, in which is based on modular synthesis. So each object makes something. What is the benefit, or let's say the simplification from here to here? There are two mainly. Like here you have 100 modules and maybe you are using 2. So you could hide the ones you're not using. The other complication here is that you can connect anything with anything and sometimes it doesn't work. So in this design, which is a bit more intelligent because it has a computer behind, you only put the modules you want. So you start with nothing and you keep adding. And you only get the connections that are really possible. In fact, you will see they connect when the objects get together. So we thought, oh, we have solved 2 of the main issues. You know, because you're designers, what you see is what you get. We kind of invented 2 other things, and it has already been said today. All what you see is relevant in this interface. There's no decoration. It's like it was told with Ableton Live. Nothing that is not bringing relevant information it's not there. And the other is, all what is relevant is shown. So you really take a look at this screen and you know everything. Like, for example, level of this object, just by looking at this part. Here you know that you have several states. Here you have quite approximate information about what is sounding, and you would say that's a gimmick. Okay, seeing waveforms is just a gimmick, and I would say no. Seeing waveforms is not a gimmick because when you put many tracks, you never know which one is which. But if you see how they sound, in 10 minutes you get learned to that. Like, this must be a synth sound, that's a bass, and that's a more synthetic sound. And if you put a drum track, you would clearly get trained very quickly about which one is the drums. And that's important because you know where each sound comes from. I will put a video. This is by Mark Robertson, who played with Björk, and he's one of the fine performers. So you will get an idea, if you haven't seen, how it goes. That's completely live. Okay? There are some sequences, but the music is being made live. Well, I will. It's in the internet, you can see it. There are many, but I put it because there are hundreds or even thousands of videos, and as Antonia says, because she's our community manager, 99% of them are very bad. So, so it's good, it's bad because we don't have control over the videos, okay? So it's very good to know which are the good ones. This one, Matt Robertson, is a good one. Okay, so, no, it's true. There are thousands of videos, and many are really completely useless. Okay, so we managed somehow to make something that was appealing to beginners. In fact, there are many React tables in museums, and people, especially kids, love it. So we made something with a low entry. Like, you go, you throw things, it sounds, you move, it changes, and people really love it. And we managed to convince some high-end professionals, meaning that we made something that could be quite sophisticated if you take your time. I think the video before of Matt Robinson touring with Bjork, in fact, showed that this can be done. We also made it collaborative, and this is seen at museums. And this is why the table is round, following what already King Arthur knew, that if you make round things, there are no privileged point of views, so there are no bosses, no leaders, or at least less evidence. So it's kind of more democratic stuff. So we made a round table, which in fact is a stupid idea from a manufacturer point of view, because it's much more expensive than making rectangular things. Okay, but we are not very good at business. And we made the company in 2009, because all what I'm telling is before the company. So like we got really popular, and Bjork and other things, working with prototypes. Okay? So we made the company, and we have like tables for museums, like they are stable, kids jump on top of them, and tables for musicians, which are portable and can be put on a plane without paying extra weight. By the way, something about collaborative, I wanted to say. This was a kind of a, it's fun for museums, but then we kind of realized musicians have their ego. No musician would like to share its instrument with anyone else. They want to be in front of, I mean, there. So this collaborative stuff didn't take it in the musician side. So in this model, I have almost never seen anyone playing collaboratively. Also, you can make duos, you can make trios, but it's not used very much in that way. Okay, so we have these things, and they're nice, they're beautiful, but of course they are quite expensive, especially considering that we have always been a small company and that we don't make them by thousands. We make them by dozens. So they are expensive. So we started making kind of our projection of this idea into the mobile and iPad world. We have mobile apps since the beginning of the iPhone, but that was something we made in 2016, especially thinking when the iPad Pro came. And we said, well, it's kind of almost the size. You can make something in an iPad Pro. And so we start working on making possible to have physical controls on an iPad Pro. And we made it. But of course, first, the surface is not that big. You cannot have many objects. And second, I don't know if you know, the technology that works on capacitive screens only allows detection, unlike in the system I have shown, which works with cameras and projectors and is very complicated. You can only have detection of the objects when they are touched, which means we switched from our model in which each module is an object to a model in which each button is for one hand. So it's more like movable buttons. Okay? Like you have two buttons and you put them wherever you want. So it's kind of a compromise between the original one and a tabletop thing. This is a video you will well, no, you don't need even to recognize. Here is the title. This is also completely live. No overdubs, no nothing. From an iPad session. So that's when the object is being used and being turned. So there's a combination of using the fingers and opening screens, betraying our initial model. Screens for higher control. Okay, this one is also on YouTube. I will show another product. It's dedicated to David. Yeah. Because what you see on the sides are David's pocket operators. So we made a sequencer in which you have to think in a different manner as all sequencers. And on top of that, we gave the possibility to synchronize via the audio cable with pocket operators. So that's a nice video. It's a bit hard to understand what this sequencer does, but especially look at here. Very minimalistic. Also on the internet. Okay, so the topic was how you bring research into development, and I will talk a little bit about the latest project, which is more clearly research-oriented than what you have seen. By research, I mean having many people studying complicated things, not only from an engineering perspective, but kind of from a more scientific perspective, and bringing this knowledge into products. So that was, what I will show was a part of a European research product in which both sides in which I'm in, this is the university and the company, were participants, and also Native Instruments and other places, and other companies and other universities. And the thing was about creating kind of intelligent, more intelligent tools for electronic dance music. I will jump a little bit, but I will focus on an intelligent drummer. Okay, the software I will show a prototype and a product. The idea is how to make a drum machine that has some knowledge and that can be used in real time, a bit like an instrument. Or that can help you to do things, like can suggest you variations, that can make new patterns for you, and all this stuff. I will be very brief. Some slides here, I think I have eliminated them because, I mean, they were from a more research talk. But the idea is using statistics and probabilities and studying, we made a system in which that knows some genres of electronic dance music, that knows house and techno, or that you can teach yourself bringing files. You just drop things and say, that's my style. Learn it. And that you then helps you to do things with this knowledge. I will show a prototype and then a clip of a product. The prototype sounds a bit boring, but the trick here was in fact that the drum sounds were boring because to pay attention on the patterns, not on the drum sounds. I mean, if you will see, if a drum kit is very boring, everything seems bad. But you will see how in this video you will the user goes from one style to the other using a fader and then adds more beats. You will see. This one is not in the internet, but it's very long and I will skip it. Or maybe it is. So don't care about listening to congas and all these things. That's not the thing. I will jump. Well, I will jump to the product. The product is simpler, but it keeps analyzes your style while you keep making patterns, and it allows you to add really more intensity in a very interactive way. I think looking at the video you will see. So all normal here, but that is not the volume. This is the density of each voice. Now, with the magnet, it can be much more lively. Well, I will skip this part because it's from the other company. Okay. We also, from another project, we start adding motion control to this machine so that you can record and train it with gestures, and it will control somehow the patterns that are being played.
Gun!
So that's using the accelerometers of the mobile phone.
Whoa!
So now I will show. I will make show a last thing about something we are working on, which is, I think, more far away than what you've seen, and it's related to the idea. Could we? I mean, it's related to this idea of making drum variations, but the idea is, could we create a map or a space of drum patterns, so that each point in this space would be a drum pattern, and so that similar drum patterns are near in the space, and that if you click a point in space in which there's no drum pattern, it will create one which is in between its neighbors. You get the idea? Okay. So we studied and made things and made mathematics and machine learning and deep learning and blah, blah, blah. And it starts to be something. So here you have 9 drum patterns, which are the dots. Navigating is creating infinite drum patterns in between the existing ones. The drum patterns are here. I think that's it. And I think that that's fine for today. Right? Thank you.
Any questions for Sergi? Yep.
So this machine created music, artificial intelligence, you have shown it doing drums and drum rhythms. Do you think it could be done also with chords and other like basses? And
oh yes, of course,
notes?
but then you need to focus on that. I mean, I'm shown the drum part. There are, first, to put things in context, using computers for composing, like with artificial intelligence, is as old as 1956. Using them for commercial tools is quite new. I would say 3-4 years, but that's just because the trends change. And now, it's not, well, also because knowledge increases, but until 5 years ago, it was a very freaky, nerdy, and academic stuff that didn't go anywhere. I mean, anywhere outside a small group. So now it's becoming much more mainstream, and these kind of intelligent instruments are starting everywhere. So chords is obviously something. I mean, we are working with chords on one side, I didn't show. We are working with drums. We are working with bass on top of drums. And it's a matter of, I mean, when you have all the puzzle, like you have the chords on one side, they can affect the bass, so it's definitely possible. It's just a lot of work. And there's there's more people than us that are working on that. I mean, many. I don't know if he will say that Ableton is working, but possibly they are. No, so many companies and many research labs are working in these topics.
Do you think like we could see full melodies and like full-fledged out songs created by machines?
We have already seen, and that I'm not saying that that's something necessarily good. I will put you I will put you a clear example about the reality. Okay, one. Spotify has been known to hire ghost composers for making music free of rights that they own and they put in best-selling playlists. This type of chill out, romantic piano, many of these pieces are owned by Spotify. And they just pay someone to make them. Okay? And then they keep putting this music and the rights are for them. Second, in September 2017, that is 8 months ago, Spotify hired the guru of musical artificial intelligence, and he founded the Music Artificial Intelligence Lab at Spotify. Okay? Is that good? For who? Well, I think it's good for Spotify. I'm always working in systems that can enhance humans. But the frontier is a bit difficult. Like, sometimes you can make a toy. I mean, we try not to make sound toys. In the sense, we try not to make tools like make nice music, whatever you do. That would be a sound toy. For me, a good instrument, even if it's intelligent, should be able to make terrible music. By terrible music, I mean should be able, because if you use something and the outcome is not what you're looking for, you learn. If you make anything without thinking and the outcome is great, you don't learn anything. So that's for me the difference between a sound toy and a music instrument that helps its user. There's no need to make instruments more complicated than, I mean, I think the good point about design is to make them as simple as possible, but as Albert Einstein said, not simpler. That's not true that Albert Einstein said that, but it's being said that. No, I mean, it's an apocryphal quote. The best theory, explain things as simpler as possible, but not simpler. You understand? So it's the same for instruments, no? Make this instrument as friendly, user-friendly as possible, not more than what you can. Because then you are definitely degrading the instrument. What? And with it, the music. I mean, I think that making music is a very serious stuff. But serious, I don't mean that it means having years. It means that even if you make it just for fun, it's great. And it doesn't need to be made for commercial purposes. I mean, I really believe that making music is good for humanity. I mean, for humans, for all humans. So, in my goal, it's to bring that to humans, I mean, as much as possible, to eliminate fears, but that doesn't mean to give just free things to fill their life. That's why I'm saying errors are essential in learning. And error means I had this in mind. You try, say, no, that's what I had in mind. Why the outcome hasn't been what I expected. So it makes you kind of learn a bit more. Also, we discussed today many times to know music or not. And I think that we all here in this panel agree, knowing music means very different things. Doesn't mean knowing how to write or read music. Doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to play an instrument. It can mean, I mean, there are plenty of different knowledges associated with music. Someone has plenty of one type of knowledge. Someone is great at writing, and someone isn't. That doesn't mean that that doesn't write is worse. It just has a different knowledge. Someone is great at manipulating knobs. So music, thankfully, today is a very wide thing, and knowing it all is impossible. So you can know different things.
Oh, that's an interesting debate. Thanks, Sergi. Any other question, or we move for the next talk that I will be introducing. So now we are going to present a bit like the results from the workshop, and I'm going to turn into Spanish. So, lo siento. Gracias, Sergi. Vale, pues mientras un poco preparamos las presentaciones y pasan lo que son los ejercicios, voy a introducir un poco lo que intentamos hacer en este workshop. Lo hemos trabajado aquí con los alumnos del Máster de Llega. Y el título del ejercicio era Loop e interfaz. Y básicamente, vamos uno por uno. Sí, ¿esto es un grupo entero? Vale. Entonces, escogiendo el loop como unidad ineludible, lo que intentábamos plantear es una herramienta, una interfaz que tenga el loop como protagonista. ¿Vale? Entonces, ahora doy paso a mis compañeros sin más dilación para que puedan ellos explicarnos qué han trabajado. La metodología que hemos usado era básicamente, al ser alumnos que normalmente no han trabajado con música, empezamos con unos fundamentos básicos para entender las mecánicas y las lógicas que hay detrás de interfaces y que sean capaces de leerlas. Y una vez ya teníamos esto hecho, lo que analizábamos las tipologías y básicamente íbamos a plantear una hipótesis que pudiesen ellos ir resolviendo mediante una definición del problema, mediante personas y algunos use cases y escenarios, y luego ya trabajábamos básicamente un design by doing, iterando en la propuesta y poniendo la propuesta en común y creando feedback entre todos. ¿Vale? Así que nada, os dejo si estáis con ellos, ¿sí? Y vamos a ver qué nos han preparado. Yo también, como último, simplemente quería decir que con este workshop lo único que intentábamos era como objetivo pues, crear una especie de experimentación donde pudiéramos, un poco lo que comentaba Sergi, romper esta barrera que a veces tiene el mundo de las interfaces, sobre todo musicales, que es como algo que parece un ente como muy críptico, y traerlo un poco a la gente solo para que los diseñadores también rompamos este miedo y podamos trabajar algo que en mi opinión es un espacio donde todavía no hay muchos diseñadores que se encarguen de diseñarlas y donde creo que es muy gratificante el trabajo. Así que empezamos con los primeros. Si vais de abajo al segundo. Vale. Yo creo que si vais ahí.
¿Sí? Vale, pues buenas tardes a todos. Somos Lali, Paula, Pilar, Mimi y yo que soy Joan. Y bueno, somos los primeros en presentar. Y la pregunta que nos planteamos nosotros era ¿qué pasaría si pudiéramos pintar música, dibujar música? Tradicionalmente son dos artes que nunca han podido estar unidas, ¿sí? Siempre que se ha intentado unir la pintura y la música, veíamos el ejemplo típico de un músico mientras el pintor iba pintando el cuadro se inspiraba en la música o al contrario, un músico se inspiraba en la pintura, pero era casi imposible, parecía, de concebir estas dos vertientes artísticas. La idea que nos planteamos es qué pasaría si pudiéramos unir estas dos vertientes y al mismo tiempo qué pasaría si pudiéramos interpretar el sonido, si a partir de algo que se ha tocado pudiéramos mirarlo, pudiéramos interpretarlo en un cuadro y a partir de ahí tener diferentes interpretaciones, como que cada persona pudiera entender lo que se ha tocado en una pintura de manera diferente. Ese era nuestro reto. Y con nuestra propuesta lo que nos permitía era dibujar y visualizar el sonido mediante un entorno de realidad virtual, todo al mismo tiempo. Bueno, nos centramos básicamente en jóvenes creativos, artistas, gente amante de nuevas tecnologías y que al mismo tiempo tuviese ese ámbito creativo. Y la idea era crear un sistema de red virtual en el que tú puedas ir pintando y tocando al mismo tiempo. O sea, cuando tú pintas, tú tocas. He hecho un pequeño vídeo para esto. O sea, la idea es, a medida que vas dibujando, vas creando el sonido y además se queda el dibujo. Nos hemos inspirado en algo que ya existe de Google, ¿sí? Que es el Tilt Brush, que puedes ir dibujando, entonces le añadiríamos la música a esto. I'm reversing.
Bueno, pues para ello creamos lo que hemos llamado una paleta musical donde cada instrumento tiene asociado un tipo de figura, que es una figura un poco, bueno, tipo geométrica. Este es el ejemplo que se vería cuando tú te pusieras las gafas. Con el mando tendrías dos mandos, con el izquierdo se vería todo este tipo de opciones y con el derecho seleccionarías la opción que más te gusta. ¿Qué opciones tenemos? Pues bien, hemos separado en 4 categorías. Una es de cuerda, que como habéis visto anteriormente teníamos la guitarra, el cello y el violín. Otra era de base, con distintos tipos dentro de la batería, pues el platillo, el tambor y el bombo. Después otra era percusión, que bueno, han sido otros 3 instrumentos diferentes, y teníamos otra que era, sí, que era como el sintetizador. Entonces, pues, estas son las distintas opciones. ¿Sí vas pensando? Sí. ¿Ves? Entonces se abren, lo que os he explicado, diferentes opciones que podríamos elegir. ¿Para qué nos sirve esto de la elección? Pues una vez que hayamos elegido la opción que queremos, sí. Vale, pues elegimos una opción, tenemos un instrumento y entonces empezamos a pintar. ¿Qué pasa cuando empezamos a pintar? Que hemos dividido 4 tipos de tiempos, según sea lento, medio, rápido o muy rápido, la velocidad en la que pintes, pues irá variando también el color. Entonces formaríamos un dibujo abstracto con color, dependiendo de la velocidad.
Bueno, ahora os vamos a mostrar el ejemplo de cómo sería, muy simplemente, esta experiencia de realidad virtual. Espera, y vamos a ver cómo se dibujan diferentes tracks, ya no tenemos sorpresa, los diferentes tracks en cómo iríamos dibujando con ese pincel y cómo se vería cada uno de ellos. Y luego veremos cómo en conjunto se crearía el loop. La idea final sería que tú este espacio que vas dibujando se imprimiese en 3D y pudieses, aparte del audio que ya has creado, que te pudieses llevar la representación gráfica de este sonido, ¿no? Y bueno, esta es nuestra propuesta, si tenéis alguna pregunta.
Vale, damos paso a los siguientes. Muchas gracias. Recuerdo que también hablamos, cuando estábamos desarrollándolo, que queríais de alguna forma que fuese una imagen que una persona que tiene problemas auditivos pudiese entender un poco la melodía, ¿no? O sea, también había algo ahí de accesibilidad, de visualizar el sonido para gente con deficiencias. Bueno, pasamos al siguiente grupo. Os dejo ya el mando.
Bueno, buenas tardes. Yo soy Cristina, Pau, Luis y Frida y venimos a presentaros Harmony. Bueno, partimos de una hipótesis que era ¿qué pasaría si pudiéramos hacer música de manera gestual y colaborativa? Fuimos un poco también a la cosa de no bailar con la música, sino bailar para crear música. Entonces, bueno, decidimos que nuestro core value iba a ser compartir un momento creativo ya que queríamos que fuese algo colaborativo y que se centrase en la creación de música a partir de la escucha de esa música. Y bueno, nuestra definición del proyecto sería una instalación experimental de creación de loops mediante movimientos corporales. Decidimos usar Kinect, que bueno, es un tipo de tecnología que te permite mapear el cuerpo humano, ver los movimientos y pasarlos a ordenador. Y bueno, ahora Frida os va a contar los usuarios y escenarios.
Bueno, nos decidimos ubicar en los jóvenes interesados en la cultura y en la creación artística, que les interese un poco experimentar cosas nuevas y divertirse en compañía de más personas. Y pensamos que podría estar establecido en museos, en festivales creativos como de diseño o de tecnología o consecuente. ¿Cómo funciona? Bueno, yo voy a explicar un poco las bases y después Pau les va a explicar un poco más a fondo. Se utiliza por medio de 4 personas como máximo y se interactúa entre el mismo loop. Cada uno tiene un instrumento diferente en el cual se va a explicar más adelante cómo funciona y cada persona está en diferentes lugares. Esto porque queremos centrar la idea en que se escuche la música, no en tanto en interactuar con otras personas, sino interactuar por medio de la música. Y como ya dijo Chris, es por medio de Kinect.
Vale, partimos del concepto de una banda básica, ¿no? Tenemos una batería, los drums, lo que serían, tendríamos un bajo, unos acordes y una melodía, ¿no? Y para cada uno de estos queríamos que hubiera un juego tanto de tono, ¿no? Del pitch, y de volumen y de ritmo dentro de ese loop. Empezamos por la batería, que sería como el básico y por el que empezarían esas personas, porque es para marcar el ritmo para los siguientes instrumentos y que también es un poco el movimiento distinto que hemos creado. La pantalla se dividiría en 4 secciones, ¿no? La pantalla que vería el usuario, que ya tendremos una representación gráfica delante, y la persona dentro de ese loop pues básicamente elegiría qué instrumento o qué parte de la batería está tocando en ese momento, ¿no? El open hat, el close hat, el kick y un clap. Ahora, bueno, y un poco la representación visual que le parecería en la pantalla es dentro de este loop, que lo hemos querido representar como un círculo, ¿no? un loop horario. Cuando depende del instrumento que ha elegido, del tambor que ha elegido, le saldría un círculo, 2 círculos, 3 círculos, 4 círculos y así en esa línea temporal circular. Después, todo lo que son los acordes, el bajo y la melodía, compartirían el mismo tipo de gestos, que se basarían en poder diferenciar eso, el tono, el volumen y el ritmo, ¿no? El tono lo haría la persona, imaginamos como un círculo imaginario, ¿no? La persona tendría un círculo imaginario en su mano y al abrir o cerrar ese círculo modificaría el volumen de esa nota que está haciendo. Al acercarse o distanciarse del Kinect estaría modificando el tono. Y moviendo las manos para arriba y para abajo es cuando él diría, pues esto, aquí estoy haciendo 3 notas, una nota, etc. Esta sería, por ejemplo, el color para las cuerdas. La represión, y claro, la idea gráfica que teníamos detrás de este círculo era que, como el loop va dando vueltas, que hubiera una línea que se fuera moviendo a partir del volumen, ¿no? Aumentando el diámetro y disminuyendo el radio a partir del volumen y el grosor a partir del tono que se está utilizando. Entonces se generaría una visualización un poco de este estilo. Y es lo mismo para los siguientes. Para el bajo, ¿no? Cambiamos el color, pero también tenemos igual, el ritmo se mueve arriba abajo, el tono, bueno, etc. Y sería esta un poco la representación gráfica que aparecería en pantalla. Y lo mismo con la melodía. Tono, ritmo y volumen de la misma manera. Y ahora el resultado final os va a explicar Luis.
Bueno, puedes pasarles aquí. Básicamente, lo que decidimos hacer es plantear 2 etapas. Una primera etapa donde tenías una pequeña curva de aprendizaje. Entonces, cuando el usuario ve esto por primera vez, lo que hace es una pequeña selección de qué instrumento quiere tocar. ¿Bien? Entonces, una vez que el usuario se incorpora en su área, va a empezar a interactuar. En la segunda etapa, una vez que selecciona el instrumento, va a tener un timer, un temporizador, donde le indica cuánto tiempo le queda para generar su loop, para generar su melodía o para generar sus acordes. Y esto es lo que va a ver el usuario. En este caso, este de aquí tiene lo que son los acordes y va a ver de cierta manera, como traslapado, lo que están haciendo sus compañeros, sus amigos. Y básicamente esa sería la interfaz de lo que planteamos en nuestro proyecto. Este de aquí sería, una vez en la primera etapa, cuando el usuario va a experimentar, se le da una pequeña dirección, una pequeña instrucción de cómo interactuar con la interfaz. Es básicamente un pequeño tutorial donde le dice move your arms forward to increase the pitch or move your arms backward to decrease the pitch. Son básicamente instrucciones para que el usuario sepa qué tiene que hacer una vez que va a empezar a interactuar con la interfaz. Gracias.
Vale, muchas gracias. Pasamos a los siguientes.
Bueno, nosotros les vamos a presentar nuestra idea, que es Boss. Básicamente teníamos la idea de generar una aplicación para que las personas puedan crear un ambiente de meditación con diferentes sonidos de la naturaleza. Entonces era prácticamente el reto de crear una aplicación súper sencilla con una interfaz súper práctica y rápida. El core value básicamente es esto, la creación de ambientes sonoros a través de la experimentación. Las personas de las que está dirigido son adultos y jóvenes que desean crear estas piezas para su propia meditación. Los ambientes de uso básicamente serían en lugares tranquilos como salas, habitaciones, o netamente para lo que es el yoga, por ejemplo. Los elementos claves que quisimos rescatar aquí dentro de la aplicación es el tema de poder escoger diferentes loops de sonidos de la naturaleza, el poder trabajar con los volúmenes de estos diferentes loops, hacer overdub, compartir las piezas y guardar las piezas generadas. Ya. Entonces, por lo tanto, Dreambound sería una aplicación que permite crear varias mezclas varias mezclas de un entorno natural, diferentes sonidos como por ejemplo sonidos del mar, sonidos del bosque, tormentas, fuegos o animales, para combinar esta mezcla. La aplicación prácticamente permitiría crear 5 loops al mismo tiempo para generar una pieza de una duración de 1 minuto, combinarlas dentro para crear una combinación de una pieza de 7 minutos de meditación. Lo que se permitiría son escuchar esta mezcla de sonidos en un tiempo real y poder elegir diferentes combinaciones o ponerle nombres a estas, como por ejemplo madrugada. Todo lo que la persona quiera desear generar en su ambiente para meditar lo puede hacer.
Sobre el logotipo, nuestro tela es la voz de la naturaleza. El logo puedes ver los años de árbol viejo. En inglés es anniversary, y su forma general también es como 2 círculos juntos y a partir de los detalles pueden ver una huella digital que se basa en nuestra forma de operación. Es táctil. El sonido de la naturaleza es interminable, como un círculo que nunca termina.
Entonces, por ejemplo, para explicar la interfaz, pásale. El primer elemento que el usuario vería es este elemento de aquí, que sería un botón único en la pantalla. Avánzame. Al tener presionado, el usuario tendría la opción de poder elegir entre los diferentes sonidos. Bueno, ahí estarían las combinaciones, cómo sería la información cromática para el usuario. Por ejemplo, al seleccionar bosque, se generaría el loop del sonido de bosque. Y el loop tendría la capacidad de dividirse en 3 zonas, es decir, para poder partirlo y crear diferentes combinaciones. Avanzale una más. Por ejemplo, las combinaciones de grosor del loop serían en cuanto a lo que sería el nivel de volumen de cada loop y digamos las combinaciones de color, de escalas de saturación del color sería únicamente bueno para el tema más bien visual y que el usuario pueda jugar un poco más con eso. Al final, digamos, creando las combinaciones de loop terminaría con un tipo de combinación así. Entonces lo que decíamos, por ejemplo, son 5 combinaciones, que es el límite permitido, y 7 combinaciones al final. Y al momento de reducir, digamos, guardaría esta combinación de loop y iría creando las diferentes piezas para la meditación de 7 minutos. Bueno, ahí se guardaría, avanzale una más. Aquí podríamos ver, o sea, sería, por ejemplo, el elegir, generaría el loop y puede editar el loop a su gusto, tanto desde el aspecto visual como la saturación o los volúmenes de cada parte del loop. Iría generando las combinaciones diferentes. Al generar estas combinaciones las guardaría y bueno, se almacenaría dentro del loop. Exactamente, ahí iría almacenando las diferentes piezas de 1 minuto para su meditación de 7 minutos. Básicamente sería esa la interacción y de ahí simplemente se dispondría en la parte de arriba de un menú con los diferentes sonidos que puede utilizar. Eso es todo, gracias.
Muchas gracias. Yo tengo que confesar que he descubierto la meditación hace poco y usaría vuestra app, o sea, acabadla pronto y ponedla en el Apple Store. Pasamos a los siguientes.
Eleni, John. A crear mi propia música.
Álvaro, Eleni, Jaume y Natalia.
Escuchamos.
So let's see, our application which is slightly bigger. And it would be like a library of sounds, maybe natural sounds. Our user is a class. Or he's just an amateur. How it works? Well, you see the basically where you can select which. Melodies in order to show them. If you want to.
El valor era como la primera hipótesis. Luego, para que la gente otra parte también que
Entonces, esta sería la primera pantalla más o menos. Ya canciones creadas por otros usuarios. ¿Aló? Ahí sí. Acercarte a alguna zona, haces zoom y haces un zoom y ahí se te ve como más específico y más categorizado los diferentes loops. Aquí tendrías las categorías, donde eso, tú si quieres ver las baterías, el bajo, la melodía, según lo que quieras buscar, te ubicas según la cromática. Entonces tú al momento de hacer clic en uno que quieras experimentar, te sale un poco la información de dónde proviene, los BPMs y un poquito eso que puedas ver. Y la idea es que la idea es que sea con mucho movimiento, o sea, por la idea de la música. Entonces esto se movería y luego también te recomendaría loops que podrían combinar bien con el loop elegido. Una vez, pásale a la anterior, por favor. Una vez que ya vas, perdón, pásale a la, perdón. Aquí, entonces cuando tú, digamos que te gusta este loop, tú agregas a una lista que son tus loops preferidos o favoritos. Y en la anterior, es que, la anterior. Ok, entonces en esta parte tú es donde vas a crear las nuevas mezclas. Entonces cuando haces clic aquí es como que te lleva a una zona del océano. Y esa es la otra parte que va a explicar.
No sé qué idioma hablar ahora, entonces voy a intentar en inglés para que me entiendan. After you choose the loops you want to use and you want to mix, you go to this screen and then you have the library with the loops you have choose side, and in that side you have the buttons you can choose, like the effects one, this one, the play one, the one who can make you put louder, and the one who can change the time. You pick the loop you want for the bass and put it in the middle, and then choose the other loops you want to play at a time. Here is the drop down you have after you press the effects button. You can choose the effect and pull it until the loop you want to use it. Volume drop down. And after you press record or rec, or sound on. Our editable screen, it's like a metaphor for the movement of the
get to mix. Then we're thinking of so this is for the record.
Then you can export it or share it.
Ok, muchas gracias. Quería agradeceros el esfuerzo que habéis hecho todos en tener estos resultados en un tiempo récord. Creo que hay buenas ideas ahí. Merece la pena igual explorarlas más, algunas, ahora que tenemos más tiempo. A ver si os atrevéis. Y ahora damos paso a la siguiente charla, que es una conversación entre Cabo San Roque y Conductor. Hemos dicho que Cabo San Roque son artistas musicales que tienen prácticas do it yourself, crean sus propios instrumentos. No son solo músicos, también trabajan las artes escénicas. Conductor es una plataforma digital, una compañía de experiencias táctiles. Tiene una app que se llama Conductor, pero también tiene muchas otras, como Bangers y alguna más. No, de apps no. Conductor y Bangers. Y vamos a ver un poco cómo estos dos mundos, aparentemente antagónicos, se pueden combinar para crear nuevos resultados. Y tenemos a Antonia Fulgora para moderar, que es de contenido de comunicación de normas de, entre otras cosas, también de Reactable, entendido. Y la mala noticia es que tenemos 20 minutos a Roger. Bueno, nos hemos alargado un poco y tiene que pillar un tren, así que nada, os dejo.
Aquí,
sí,
perdón.
Yo voy controlando.
Sí, tú vas controlando. Y cuando otra cosa, ¿cómo continuamos? ¿Continuamos en inglés, en español, en todo?
Mix. Mezcla.
Mezcla. Let's continue in English then, or half English, half Spanish.
Spanglish.
So, Spanglish, okay. Let's do Spanglish then. Empecemos con un vídeo y luego os los presento y empezamos a hablar. ¿Sonido?
No hay sonido.
No sound again.
No sound, no. Es la salida, ¿no?
Debería sonar.
Ahora no. No, sí, seguiríamos la misma táctica que Sergi, ¿no? Esto lo podéis ver también en internet. Y como tenemos tiempo, vamos mal de tiempo, es un poco más de lo mismo.
So this is a project that Roger and Laia, his partner at Cabo San Roque, made together with Conductor, which is the startup company where Albert Minguell works. And this is like, I don't know, I think it's best that you explain it, but it's like an interface that's, or a tool that's specifically designed for the iPad, Conductor, controlling this mechanical machine. Because Cabo San Roque, they are a band, they are a music band, but they are normally on stage together with invited musicians that are mechanical, that are non-human, and they have like some sort of a life of their own. But it's best if I ask you, like, what is Cabo San Roque? Are you a band? Are you, I don't know, inventors, engineers?
Yeah,
¿Qué sois?
I think we are comfortable with sound artists, maybe. The thing is, what we do is always creating sound by mechanical means or electromagnetic, electric, not digital. We use we use MIDI sequencing to operate these machines, sound devices, and we use them in music environment or sound installation in museums or in theater environments. You know? 3 different applications of this. And this video, what you see, we used it was an exhibition of the machines we made in the last 15 years. So we used we had all the machines all together. So we used to make a demonstration with Conductor.
How do you build those machines? What are those objects? And how you're joining them together? And what specific job has each object?
Yeah, well, they are used because of their physical condition, their physical properties. Sometimes, industrial production in factories can do many things that we cannot do in our workshop. For instance, a bathtub, yeah, it has a very good resonance, or a washing machine, tambor, washing machine, ¿cómo diría? Yeah, the inside of a washing machine has very good sound quality in terms of reverb or resonance, and we don't have the means to produce what it can be produced in a factory, so we assembly and we achieve different sounds composed by a collage of objects and sound properties.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to ask something for Albert. Tell us, what is Conductor?
Yes, Conductor is a controller for iPad, and it was created like 4 years ago as a product, but it was mainly a project that it was in my initial hands, and I just started to make my own tool to create music, because I'm an engineer, but I've been related to knobs and buttons all my life, and piano also, and after that I met Oriol and Julia Carboneras, my other 2 founders, and we started to build this product. And now Conductor is a controller for a lot of softwares, and actually it burned like an event on live controller, but also is for tractors and as a media standalone module, and it's focused in controlling as a way that it makes sense on an iPad. our main focus was to make a very useful and the potentially user experience product where users can customize their needs and then can also have a flexible interface, an intuitive interface. So we build on top very special features like gestual recognition, but not as gestual as like accelerometers, like things that you can map, for instance, your hand, depending on the size of your hand. If you want to play drums, so you can map the size of your hand, and then it customizes your hand, or you can apply physics on faders, because in this kind of surfaces you lose the muscle memory that it's called, because you don't know where exactly are you touching. So we developed things like allowing us to depending on the amount of fingers that you put, you can really touch and interact with controls without looking at the screen. So we use that an iPad is not meant to control music, as they're machines that are not meant to play music, and then we just like, you know,
yeah,
mix the both walls to high-low, no? Like
yeah, I would like to say that for us, our relationship with Conductor, it's very important that started even before Conductor was started, because Julia, one of the 3 co-founders, was the one who helped us in the change of system. Our first automatizations where we were working with PLC, that's automat used in industry, and with not intuitive into music, not compatible with any software of music. So we had to program in not music friendly environment like numbers, and Julia helped us to change to MIDI system. So then we started making using MIDI to contact to electric contact circuits. So we can use any software that can sequence MIDI. In fact, we use Live. So this MIDI 5 volts is converted to 12 volts or 24. And so for us, it was once when we changed to MIDI, so we can interact with any other interfaces.
So you basically needed a language, you know, to operate the interface and get your instruments to make things.
Here is like if the laptop were their machines, no? So you need something to interact with the laptop, and so it's kind of Conductor it's just a middleware between your hands and the laptop. So because mouse are not meant to play music, so kind of same, no? So people in the installation, people were allowed to interact with their machines with a middleware system. So
yeah, it's curious because we are always under using the interfaces, and we are under using the programs, because we only use a small part which is related to sequence MIDI. You can interact in many ways, but at the end you are only using a small portion of the program, of the music program, which is how to sequence MIDI. And as well, it's something ironic that you program, you can play live, or you program, you touch a C, for instance, and after a long path, maybe it can sound a C, but this actually can be a light, or it can be some wind air compressed, that sounds a C, but it's not so obvious. I explain.
What is your musicians, but what is your background? Because you work all the time with mechanical objects, you work with technology that it's maybe not very easy to use. What are you? What is your education? Let's say?
Laia, which is the other partner who is not here, she's an engineer, and me, I studied architecture, but we learned inside what we do. We didn't learn studying what we do.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes when you say, yeah, she's engineer and me, I am an architect, and people say, okay, I understand. But when we started with this, we didn't know how to drill a hole in a wall. You know, we were this kind of people that were with a hammer trying to hang a picture, and so we learn inside. Yeah.
So how did you get with the idea of using that kind of objects and that kind of machines to make music or help you with your music?
Yeah, because we started like 9 people in a music band. With the only idea we had is you had to avoid your instrument, the instrument you could play, just to approach music only with intuition and without technique. So every song was an addition of very simple parts, and especially we were playing instruments that we didn't know how to play, and we built instruments, so they were limited also. So they were addition of very simple parts, 9 people, and then once we started working only 4 of us aside, and we had panic because the band was not constructed as these loops that you presented with, like 1 drummer, 1 bass. This works, you know, and then it can be a soloist in top. So we didn't have this, so we had panic, and we tried to reproduce this environment where, like, small, silly parts can be added. So we thought, well, we can build stupid machines that make these simple parts, and we start doing this, evolving, and
You also make records. How do you get this mechanical music into the records? How do you record all these sounds to put them in a recording? With hundreds of microphones?
No, it's not. It's not that different of we contact microphones. We also build wires and microphones. No, it's not that different. But I have to say that we are more interested in constructing situations, doing installations with some kind of sound event, something that happens in front of you, than in automatization of elements or instruments, or playing as a band. Yeah, I think they are more interested in making something happen in front of you, some sound event that happens in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Are the machines unpredictable somehow?
Yes. We like a lot hazard, flexible things that doesn't happen always in the same way. No, it's like life. No, like some hazard happening, and how can you try to reproduce that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm like a bit suffering for him because he has to go. Are we okay on time? So I can keep asking questions and moving forward with the conversation. Yes. So I have a question for Albert. Their objects and their machines are not intended to make music, but they do. And as you said, the nature of the two projects together is like things that were not intended to make music, like the iPad. I think that nowadays we kind of have accepted that iPads and iPhones are music tools, but maybe it was more unusual 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, sure. It's like, because at once this is a phone, no? So that's not meant to make music. But after that, software companies started to make products, and people, playing with interactions know that you can do music actually with this. And there's a long road in this, because the interaction, as I told, is not good always. So you feel like it's something physical that you are messing here, and that's why people like them are doing some tangible, because it feels like you need something more to add on top, because you are used to touch things and turn things, and that's the main focus of Conductor, to make things that make sense on an iPad. For us, it doesn't make sense to take a guitar and put a string guitar here and just like this. You need to find new ways of interact with these new medias,
No, because it's kind of usual to have pianos inside a phone, or guitars inside a phone.
No keys here, it's not. It's not.
So how do you approach creating a tool or an instrument, thinking that you have this, and that you have to perform with 2 hands, 5 fingers each, in this? How do you do that?
For us, it's the first thing. It's to think about the context. So Conductor, it's not a controller, it's a controller made for live situations. So that's our main objective. So you need to be flexible, you need to be intuitive. So when someone is playing live, cannot be with nested drop-down menus or anything. So you need to have only what you need, and after that you need some ways of interact, like this one that I call, maybe with 2 fingers I can adjust the second fader with one, and then I need precision. It's not a more artistic, how to say this, type of wearables that you only make sound. You need precision. I want to tweak a knob, an amount of an effect or level, so I need precision. So that's the way that we think we can approach to and actually there's a lot of people using it, and they say it works, so maybe we're not doing it so bad.
The thing is that the other thing that I think is very interesting of your collaboration is that it's called high-low, as in high, I guess it's like low, the digital, and the low, the mechanical.
Yeah.
How these two things work together and interact together.
Actually, it's pretty similar. If I analyze it, it's because we have different kind of modules that they do different things and different behaviors, and we have different modules that are machines, and inside, behind this, we have thousands of cables, and I have thousands of lines of code. So it's I remember the first time I saw all the machines, I was like, what the fuck? It's how you detect a bug here? It's when someone is not ringing or someone is not, it's but maybe he thinks the same with me, how you detect something is not working in the screen,
I also see it as similar Conductor or Live or what you said, that you create some kind of flexible tool, very flexible, and then you become surprised about how people is using. There are a kind of aberrant use of this kind of tool. It's a strange way to use. You could never imagine that someone was going to use your tool like we do. You don't do it because of that. Sorry, I will have to go.
Please, thank you very much.
Actually, I think we don't know extend too much because we are all here for the beers, no?
I don't know. Let's extend until they kick us out, so we can keep on talking about Conductor and what is the best thing of having musical tools on an iPad? What has an iPad or an iPhone or a smart device that it's better than on a laptop or a desktop computer, or yeah?
I don't know if it's better. What it is, it's more flexible. For instance, and when I decided to start with the project, I used an iPad at first because I had an iPad, so it's the only thing I had to program. So, but then for me it was to make a tool that I don't have, because when you buy hardware controllers, you are like, you have the rows of buttons, the rows of knobs, so you are just stick to what someone thought about it, how it should be. So you only could like just pass the stickers with names like base, blah, blah. So, and then if you want to change the layout, you need to rebuild all the stickers again. So I thought about a tool where I can just have different modules and I can just on time, like in live situation, like just open one, scale it. I want now in a big size, I want it in a small size, etc. So this kind of flexibility, it's not possible with a physical hardware. Maybe the best approach, the best of both worlds, is having the screen and having the flexibility of the screen, and then having some physical knobs, the one that are better to interact with. But with this flexibility of changing the screen or changing the layout in real time. So that's this kind of worlds that are just converging. Nobody gets a cool product of it, but it's, people trying to do it.
You also mentioned that you have some tools that recognize your hand and recognize your fingers and the size of your fingers. Explain how it works.
Yeah, this was for the Brundle module. So all our users were demanding a drum pad module. So we were like, okay, let's do a drum pad. But why do we don't change the way? Because a drum pad is usually is a matrix of buttons. So you just play like this. And actually, an iPad, it doesn't have like pressure, okay? So you need to deal with approximating to the center or the amount of finger, but it's not working properly. So we thought like, okay, maybe we can do a blank space where you just put your hand and then it calibrates the separations between the fingers. So then you can just play without looking to the screen and in an adapted interface. And it was cool. It's working pretty well because you can really play without being stuck in a region. We also have the magic button if someone doesn't like it, but we always try with Conductor to just start in a blank state so you don't think about. It seems like a typical thing, but what we do.
Yeah, many companies that make music tools, they say that they are musicians that do things for musicians, as it's in React Table and also at Ableton, and you are also musicians that do things for musicians.
Yeah, I studied multimedia engineer, but I also have the piano degree, but I don't play classical music. And I just started with electronic music since I was 13 or whatever. I never made a dollar playing music, but that's not my. It's something that I need to do it, so I play music. I have my studio and my.
So when you thought about making Conductor or other tools, you think what you need as a musician, and you do it yourself.
A personal project just to do a tool for myself, and then we met with Oriol, Rosé, and Julia, and they wanted to do another project, and we started just to make a product to put the layout, the design, and because for me it was very important to have a very, very cool design. So because normally it's a very functional wall, so Ableton did it very well about this. But we still have these creepy BSTs that I don't know who about designed it, but you need to do something with this. I don't know, just tweak the colors or something because. and it should be beautiful and functional. So that's our main purpose with this.
And Sergi said that at React Table they are not designers, even though they have some pretty killer design and very iconic, and it's very recognizable when you just look at it. What are your backgrounds?
My background is a multimedia engineer, and I don't know anything about design. I know what I like, but I don't know what to design, and I'm very terrible about this.
And Julia and Nuriel?
Julia is engineer too, and musician. Nuriel, it's cinema, I think. He studied cinema, but he's into music research, and so we were like, I was more the one of product, and the one, and Julia is more about the startup thing, and then Nuriel is more about communication.
So the decisions that you make about design are basically yours?
And not only mine, but I'm the one that makes the product, so it's, but every time we do something, we just,
because we're going to have
with us,
a look. It's also like a very clean design, like easy to use.
Yeah, actually we did a flat design too, just a month before iOS and Apple went into flat design too, because when we released Conductor, everything was 3D. That's another 4-dimension XY that we developed. You have kind of gestual, and then you freeze and memorize things, and then you can reload memories. Actually, now we are also investigating with machine learning about how to just play something, and then the controller knows your ranges. So you don't need to define ranges, you know, like this previous thing about, no, I want it from 90, and maybe we're just developing things in this direction. Like just take it and then start to analyze, and then it says, okay, maybe I will adjust it like this. That's a customized model that you can just only, with Live you just push buttons and it starts to detect and add parameters real time, very quick. So that's another thing about this kind of tools, that should be functional, should be beautiful, and they must be very, very integrable. So and easy to do and plug and play. If you need like 1 hour to set up the tool, it's crap. If you need 15 minutes to, on stage to set up Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, it's so there's another thing in Conductor that we are very obsessed about.
So do you have questions for Albert? Preguntas para Albert.
That's not a tool for experimenting crazy stuff. You can do it, but it's not as a wearable or dancing with playing with music. That's more a controlling. So that's Conductor is more a pro thing, pro tool. So
like a
definitely you need it. Yeah. Because Conductor it doesn't make sound. It's connecting to other software. So if you don't know the software, actually we have used that. It's not making sound. No, it's like no, it's not a. You need Ableton or any other software that plays MIDI.
Any other questions?
¿A qué software tienes pensado? No sé qué software son los que soporta y qué software tienes pensado. O sea, si tienes pensado añadir alguno, o se puede uno programar para el suyo propio que esté usando herramientas.
Sí, ahora está controlando Ableton con una gama de módulos y luego Tractor. Pero luego, bueno, hay un update ahora a punto de salir que saldrá que también para MIDI, cualquier Universal MIDI. Entonces te podrás hacer tus para cualquier software, incluso para luces, para lo que quieras. Estos módulos son customizables, al final no puedes aplicarlo a cualquier historia.
¿Había alguna otra pregunta? ¿Alguien estaba intentando preguntar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but this interface is not it's not built for showing things. So, for instance, Ableton did push because you need something. You need something to interact with. If you try to make music with a mouse, it's not a human computer. The interaction is very bad. So you need something to express that makes you express in a way that you will do it with a guitar or with a drums, with something. So this is a tool to allow you communicate with expressions with a computer, the same way that Roger did it with the machines. So you need something to send messages as a way that it's human and transparent for you.
And still getting it right.
Yes, uses MIDI and OSC too. Yes, yeah. And it's actually a live tool, so you can prepare your live setup. So with the modules that you need, and with the this slider is a piano that if you don't know how to play music, you can just plug a real piano into conductor, and it will correct you the notes, depending on the scale. And so there's few tools to interact with the software.
More? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Albert and Antonia. Thank you everybody for coming here. I guess now we have like some beers from Moritz, if you want to join us, maybe to talk with us. We have a lot, so join us.